Welcome back to the Real Arsenal Deal podcast. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you are well. Thank you so much for tuning in. Even though it's the international break continuing this weekend, there are still a few Arsenal-related talking points. So let's just get straight into it. I'm going to be discussing in this video the news that Saliba is going to be out for reportedly 3 to 4 weeks. Just another injury that's just stacked on to what Arsenal are already experiencing. Overnight, Mikel Merino has thumped a glorious hat-trick in a 6-0 win over Turkey. We'll get into that, particularly around Mikel Merino's finishing, which just continues to be a real strong suit of his. We've also got some other internationals to round up on. I haven't been paying full attention to all of them. I know there's a number of Arsenal players on international duty, but I know that 4 Arsenal players started for England over the weekend as well. And finally, we'll touch on a reported bid for Trossard emanating out of Turkey again, and Max Dowman making his debut for the under-19. So, look, let's just hit it from the top. Mikel Merino. If you haven't seen them yet, I've only watched the highlights. I watched the highlights this morning with my 2 sons because they do like Spain. They know the Arsenal connection with of course David Raya, now Zubimendi. Of course, Arteta's Spanish, so there's always an affinity there. And Merino starting. So we watched that game. I had no idea of the score heading into it. We put the game on this morning, and I knew Merino scored a few days ago for Spain as well. A fantastic header from a corner, another strong suit of his. And then he thumped a hat-trick in this morning. And there's just something about him. It's one of those things where I think myself and maybe many others have speculated with Arsenal's additions this summer. Like, where does Mikel Merino really fit in at Arsenal? We imagine that that in this elusive framework of Arsenal having all their players fit again at the same time, as ridiculous as that sounds sometimes, but where does Merino fit in? Because in his positions, which I imagine Arteta has assigned him the left 8 position, he's got Declan Rice ahead of him, of course, and now Eza, who's got the capability of playing there. There's the prospect of further game time as an 8 or /10 for Waneri as well. So it's one of those things where does Merino really fit in? And sometimes a player is just so technically sound and they just consistently get shots on targets, arrive at the box at the right time, have all those attributes that you just sometimes have to find a way. And I wonder if this has really played into Arteta's thinking. We really didn't get to see the best of Merino last season, well, for a host of reasons. Not helped by, at the very start of the season, I think it was one of his first training sessions, he had that collision with Gabriel, and he's done his shoulder, and he's out of action for, I think it ended up being around 8 weeks. So you can't really get a gauge on him. I think him coming to Arsenal, a lot of the noise around him was in relation to that left 8, the kind of box crashing role that Arteta he's been looking for a number of years now. Xhaka didn't quite have those attributes, and Xhaka at the time, he wanted to pursue his career in Germany. We of course signed Kai Havertz with that role in mind, and then he ended up being converted to a centre forward in that late stage of that season, and did immensely well. So it's strange to get a gauge on Merino. Like, what actually is he? Is he a creative midfielder? Is he a 10? Is he a deep line playmaker? Is he a 6? He's a little bit of everything. I think the through line of Merino is that whatever he does it at a very technically proficient level. Very professional footballer, obviously vastly experienced. I mean, you're not a mainstay in the Spanish national team, one of the best in the world at the moment, as their results demonstrate. You're not a consistent mainstay in a side of that quality if you're not good. It sounds just so ridiculously obvious. However, when you put your Arsenal hat on and you look at the numbers we've got now, the squad depth, it's just difficult to see where is his real volume of minutes going to be. But you know what, Merino, I look at it this way. I was saying to my sons this morning, and I said it as well a few months ago when Arsenal suffered so many injuries, is that if you want someone taking a shot on goal, I want it to be Merino. I know it sounds mad, it sounds ridiculous somewhat, but it was him and Waneri who were consistently hitting the target you don't have to score every single goal. Of course, I'm not being unreasonable here, but Merino, his stats would show that his conversion rate is quite strong. He hits the target. He makes the goalkeeper work. His goals against Leicester when he first came in after the Dubai trip where Kai Havertz suffered his basically season-ending injury. Merino came in. His two finishes in their own right, they were class. It was a nicely tucked away header from Waneri's cross, and then late in the match, Trossard's he's rocketed a cutback across from the left, and Merino's taken on a half volley and just guided it in just beautifully. He just made it look. He made it look easy. And these goals this morning against Turkey, again, he just made it look easy. Whatever he does, he just does it well. And he even though it's more difficult than what it looks, he just does the job. And his third goal, if you haven't seen it yet, I strongly implore you to watch it. Just from outside the box, beautiful dip and curve on it from his left foot. Well, we have to find a way. Like if we want someone consistently hitting the target, Mikel Merino is the man. So like, what a dilemma! What a nice dilemma to have, despite the options in and around him. Merino, you know what you get when he comes into the team, and it probably changes the complexion a bit of a lot of the scrutiny that Arteta suffered and Arsenal suffered last week in starting Merino at Anfield. Which reminds me, actually, I do want to record a video, just a separate video around. I'll probably do that tomorrow, just addressing the unrelenting pressure, the pressure cooker that Arsenal seem to live under from the media. It's just at fever pitch. So I think I'll address that sort of stuff in a separate video. So getting back to this, I think we just have to find a way to get Merino in the team and take shots. If he can arrive in the box late, if he can come on and impact the game as a substitute late on, he's just got to find a way, because if you give him a half chance, if you give him a chance, he's going to put it on target. And as we know, anything can happen. If the ball doesn't go in, it can force a save, a rebound, a deflection, an own goal. We just got to improve that open play chance creation. I think someone like Merino, he can really help you unlock the door. So elsewhere, it was reported from L'Equipe in French media, and I think when stories come out from the player's home nation, usually you take them with a bit more credibility, because it's probably come from his representatives or his sources, family members. I sit up and take notice of that sort of news more so than others. So it's been reported that Saliba is going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks, was the quote, with that ankle injury that he suffered in the warm-up against Liverpool. So, look, I'm just putting straight away, I put my mathematics hat on, right? So 3 to 4 weeks from the actual time of the injury, well, it's already been 1. So 2 weeks of that is already eaten up by the international break. So even if you say it's 4 weeks, it's still, I guess, half eaten up by the internationals, that he wasn't going to feature for Arsenal anyway. But then, troublingly for Arsenal, our fixture list, our schedule, it's unrelenting in its own right. Yes, we have Forest at home next week. That I'm really hoping we can put in a performance and get the 3 points on. After that, there's Athletic Club in the Champions League, which you could mount an argument, would that be a good opportunity to start Mosquera anyway? I think more so against Port Vale in the League Cup. I think that's almost a given that some of the first teamers should sit out that one and play some of the squad players that are waiting in the wings. But then it's Manchester City and then Newcastle away, and those are the big ones, especially City. We know how seriously Arsenal take the City matches, especially Gabriel and Saliba, as a combination against Haaland. I mean, they've had some incredible battles in the last couple of seasons in particular, and we've done really well overall against City. And those two players in particular have really put in a shift, and they take it so seriously against Haaland. There's that extra edge now. Of course, there's the extra edge to Arsenal, Manchester City anyway. However, there are battles within battles, and losing Saliba from that one, there's no other way to dress it up. It's a blow. It's yet another injury. How many of these are we really sort of juggling at the same time? And in my last recording, I lamented the fact that for the best part of 70 minutes at Anfield in one of the biggest matches against one of the biggest opponents, your direct title rival, we played 70-odd minutes without Saliba, Odegaard, Havertz and Saka on the pitch. it's just become an all too familiar scene, sadly, for Arsenal lately. We've just got too many players, unfortunately, at the wrong times, being injured at the same time. And now we've got Saliba to contend with as well. So it is what it is. At least now Arsenal are much better prepared. We've got the squad depth. We've leveled up in the transfer market. We've made conscious decisions. Mosquera looks good. He looked fantastic at Anfield. And you just hope that all these players are going to come back from international duty with a clean bill of health. They're going to be fit. They're going to be available. And that we're not going to have a situation where we've got a group of cluster injuries again in 3 or 4 players injured in the one position, because that's what cost Arsenal last season. So hopefully, fingers crossed that everyone else comes back fit. Ricardo Calafiori, I'm looking at you because I'm a bit hesitant to check watch closely the Italian matches, or even just see in the next day or two how did everyone go and has he come through unscathed? Because we just want them all back. We want them all fit and doing their thing for Arsenal, because I feel we due a little bit of good luck, a bit of good fortune in that regard. So elsewhere, it looked like, I think, four players started for England. Again, I haven't seen the match, but I saw Rice, Eza, Madueke and Lewis Skelly on the team sheet. For England on the weekend, Declan Rice with a fantastic headed goal. I don't think Madueke was credited with the first goal, just from the highlights I saw. I do believe it was a deflection, came as an own goal, but he looked good again on the right. He's cutting in. His stock is really rising, I feel, at Arsenal, his stature, because for someone who was it was a bit of a polarising reaction from myself included when it became clear that Arsenal were pursuing him and the interest was genuine. However, just fast forward a few weeks and you look at the injuries we've already suffered. You look at Martinelli's form, Trossard, who I'll come to in a moment, but Trossard's, he's had a couple of injury niggles and he's fallen out of the picture a little bit. Madueke is all of a sudden an integral signing, especially for this next 4 to 6 week period, whilst we're trying to get Saka back to full fitness and reintegrate him. Madueke is essential. He's just all of a sudden, like, this can happen. It can happen without even realising that. Sometimes a player becomes so important. And Madueke's looked good. Take nothing away from his performances so far. He's looked good. He's looked a threat on the left and then the right. More so on the right. I feel that's more of his natural position. However, when you look at, again, I don't want to go I don't go too hard on individuals here, but Martinelli as a threat on the left, I'd much prefer Madueke there. If Saka was fit, or if we had another starting option on the right, whoever Arteta selects there, I would put Madueke as my starting left winger if we were playing tomorrow. I just think he's obviously much more confident. He trusts his ball dribbling abilities. He takes his fullback on. He gets in behind. He can cut in. He needs to play. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of Madueke, touch wood, that he remains fit. He's a very, very important signing for Arsenal. I'm pleased we've got him, because once again, without going over the same points again and again, without injuries, had we not made the choices that we have this summer, the 8 signings, Arsenal would be in a little bit of early season trouble. And we know what happens. Like the fixture list hasn't really exploded yet. It's not really three games a week. That's still to come later this season. So right now we've got the options to get us by to a certain extent. However, when it really get into the thick of it, November, December, January, Champions League, cup matches, Premier League on the weekend, you're travelling away into Europe during the week, we're going to need all players on deck. And I'm just hoping Madueke is a mainstay, because from what I see so far, excellent signing. So I'll just plough through these last few points. By the way, I've taken your feedback on board from my recording a few days ago. Thank you for everyone who's listened. I think you wanted a bit more of a short, sharper, concise recording. So with that in mind, I'm trying to keep this one a lot more tighter in terms of its running time. So elsewhere, there was a reported bid for Trossard emanating out of Turkey. Forgot which Turkish club it was, but the reported fee was 22 million euros. I think from experience, it's difficult to gauge how credible, how realistic these sorts of rumours are. I mean, so much stuff that comes out from Turkey doesn't end up ever materialising. Now, if this bid came in, if this bid came in, 2 or 3 weeks ago, when Arsenal weren't in the current mini injury crisis that we're now in, there's a school of thought to say we should take that. 22 million euros at his age. I mean, that's pretty decent. That's pretty decent for Trossard. And it was long rumoured or perhaps suggested that Arsenal were open to selling one of either Martinelli or Trossard this summer. Neither of them ended up materialising, of course, but I think if a really good bid came for Martinelli, something that was in that range of sort of 50 million or above, I really think the club would have looked very closely at that and thought, look, now's the time is right. For Martinelli as well, for his confidence, for his next phase of his career, and for Arsenal to recoup, offset our spending, and perhaps look to reinvest that elsewhere. Maybe we were looking for a genuine left-winger target. Rodrigo was always linked. However, his numbers would have been astronomical, like his fee and his wages. I don't think it went too deep beyond just a passing casual interest at the start, because financially it wasn't viable for Arsenal. But maybe Arsenal were looking for that. In the end, of course, we've signed Eza, who I do believe is going to be starting left wing very soon. I think he will start left wing next weekend. Touch wood that he's fit against Forest with Madueke on the right. And I'm looking forward to that, because that's a whole new unpredictable element for Arsenal. That's something we haven't really seen before. And just unfortunately for Martinelli and Trossard, their game time might be just a bit limited, a bit more impacted. So had we not suffered the early season injuries, I think there's a school of thought to say, yes, we should look into that. We should perhaps cash in on Trossard. But for now, my gut feel is I just don't. Now that the window is closed, of course, there's nothing else we can do to acquire anyone as a replacement of sorts. I don't think much more will happen with this. I think it'll be very risky to sell him now, even though the Turkish window, some other European windows are still open at this point of the season. I don't think you should do it. That's just my personal opinion. You might disagree. Please let me know. You might have a view that, hey, we've spent so much this year and our net spend figures, something's got to give and we need to recoup financially. And in terms of players with asset value, maybe Trossard's the one. So please let me know what you think. Lastly, I'll cover, again, I've only just seen highlights. I've only just seen them clipped up on Blue Sky. Max Dowman made his debut for the England under-19s. That's amazing. And he's 15. Not only has he made, obviously, a few senior appearances for Arsenal, as incredible as that is, but 15 years old, and he's playing under-19s football. And from the highlights package that I saw, he absolutely dominated them. Again, their left back, my goodness me, he gave him an absolute kicking. I don't know, did he end up getting a yellow card or a red card? Some of the challenges I saw were just wild. But Dowman, he just gets up and he brushes that off. I think he's aware that he's got a bit of a profile now. He's got a reputation, a growing reputation around him being a potential generational talent. And a lot of other teams are sitting up and taking notice. And if you're an 18, 19-year-old and you've got a 15-year-old, coming to town, like sometimes they want to throw their weight around. I think you're going to see that in the Premier League too. Sometimes Dowman's going to come up against people twice his age, but probably more than twice his age, right? And they're going to want to just stamp their authority and just show that, hey, who the hell is this young bloke? I'll show him a thing or two. And unfortunately, that's sometimes part of the territory. I'm certain the club's aware of that. Arteta's aware of that. Dowman, his family, they would be aware, so that they would be preparing themselves accordingly. But what he continues to do is phenomenal. At 15 years old, and to be able to just dust himself off and keep going. He won a penalty again. He's taking shots on goal. He's confident. He attacks his fullback. He's a very direct footballer. Give him the ball at his feet, and he's just got one thing on his mind. He just goes. He's direct. He attacks, and that's such a skill that's so hard to teach someone. It's just innate. It's part of their character. It's part of their instincts as a footballer. And from what I've seen so far, Arsenal have got something very, very special here. He's something else, and I love the way we're nurturing him. I still maintain he shouldn't have come on against Liverpool at Anfield. I feel that was the wrong move. I feel some of our substitutions, if we had our time again, we should have done things differently. I think Waneri should have been on a lot earlier. I also believe Eza should have been on a lot earlier, ideally at halftime for Martinelli. But look, it is what it is, right? It's the finest of margins, how much that late goal that we conceded to that free kick, how much that changes the entire narrative and just that whole gut feeling around the match itself. And you really sort of rue all these little decisions. I still maintain, though, that Dowman, look, if you're going to bring him on, you should have brought him on earlier, and I don't think you should have taken off Madueke. That's just my opinion. I don't think it should have been a direct swap. I get in theory that we're chasing a goal, we're trying to get an equaliser, we need someone of Dowman's attributes who can maybe he could win a penalty even with his dribbling. So I understand the logic. I'm just saying that it shouldn't have been like for like. Maybe it was the time to take Zubamendi off, who was flagging at that point, and I think that tackle to give away the free kick that ultimately led to the goal, I think that reflected that he was starting to flag, and just this nagging feeling sometimes that we are just a bit too passive. We're watching the game, watching the moments drift by. It's just one of those things where I do feel that we can sharpen up, especially Arteta just allows maybe patches of time just to drift away, and we're a little bit too reactive. But look, that's just a closing thought on that match. I'm sure everyone's probably sick to death of talking about it, and we're pretty keen for Arsenal to get back out there and get back to winning ways. So with that in mind, thank you so much for listening and for tuning in. Please like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or follow me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and leave a review, please, if you'd be so kind. It really does help. And please let me know your thoughts, any questions, any comments, any feedback on this format. Are you enjoying the video content? I read every single word, and I would really greatly appreciate any feedback whatsoever, constructive or not. Please let me know. I'm really just I'm keen to see what my viewers and listeners have to say as well. So thank you so much, and I will speak to you again soon. I will record another podcast tomorrow. And just a timely reminder, just check in on your loved ones. Make sure you're looking after yourselves. Just be kind to each other, I guess now more than ever. And let's just try and do better, all of us. Okay, I will speak to you all soon. Thank you again, and come on, Arsenal.